What's up guys, it's Cody York. I'm back with another editing tutorial for you guys. This time we've done all of our star stacking in Starry Landscape Stacker and Sequator. So now we're gonna take those files of our sky images for the Milky Way and our foreground blue hour image, and we're gonna composite them together. I don't know if composite's the right word because we shot these in a different time, but more of like an exposure blend. So we're gonna do an exposure blend of those files and I'll show you how to do that. Let's get started. All right, so I've already taken the liberty and done my sky stack here, which you see is this TIFF file. And I've made some adjustments to that TIFF. That's the star stacked and Starry Landscape Stacker. I saved it back into Lightroom. If you are not familiar with that side of things, go ahead and watch the previous video, find star stacking for Sequator or Starry Landscape Stacker. Watch that and then come back and watch this. So this is that sky file, and then I've gone ahead and tweaked it a little bit more. I've boosted the exposure, made sure that, you know, I've done a local adjustment here with the mask where I've, you know, centered it over the Milky Way core to emphasize it and bring it out. And I've boosted, let's see, the exposure, the whites, and some clarity on that. Let me click on it. You'll see right here, there's some contrast boost. There's a clarity boost. And I'll show you the before and after, and I've emphasized the Milky Way. So generally that sky file is ready to go. I don't see anything else I need to do to that. I'm gonna jump over to the foreground image here and I'll show you what I've done to that. Here's the foreground file, and the original, here's the before. This was taken at Blue Hour. This is the after when I've done some edits here in Lightroom. But I've adjusted the color temperature to make it a little more blue. I've brought down the highlights because it was kind of clipping a little bit at the horizon line. That's important for blending. So I brought that all the way down. I boosted the shadows to show some detail here in the foreground. So I'll bring that back up. And then I've also, you know, to match those sky files, I've mentioned this in the other video, it's very important that in lens corrections, you have remove chromatic aberration checked and enable profile corrections. You want to make sure your distortion set to 0, and that'll match what we did with the sky files. The distortion, if you remember what I said, for the sky files up here in the corners, when it is enabled all the way, it ends up creating some banding here in the corners, but it's important that we match the foreground and the sky file, whether you corrected the distortion or not, that both files are the same, because when you blend them later, your horizon line won't match up if they're not. So I'm gonna get rid of that. So now I have my working foreground image and my sky image, and now I'm gonna do the blending. I'm gonna do the magic and put these together. So on a Mac, I'm gonna command click the second sky image. Then I'm gonna control click on a Mac or right click on a PC, and I'm gonna hit edit in. And instead of just edit in Photoshop, we wanna go to open as layers in Photoshop. So go ahead and do that. All right, once the layers are open here, we have our blue hour image on top, which is fine because we're probably gonna have that sky image selected out to show the Milky Way behind it. And we have our Milky Way below. So there's the sky foreground. So you wanna make sure that you're selected on this foreground layer because we wanna select out this blue sky, it's easier. So there's multiple ways to select your sky image. The easiest, the quickest way is the quick selection tool. And I've demoed that before, but I'll go ahead and show it again. And on situations like this image, where we have a hard ridged edge with this rock, it's easier for the quick selection tool to decipher the difference between foreground and sky and get a clean selection. So let me show you that. I'll go ahead and grab my Wacom tablet pen. I'm gonna go to the quick selection tool here. And then you're gonna click and drag on the sky image, and it's gonna start isolating pixels that are similar. And as you see, it did a pretty good job of selecting that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and move this, move this dialog box. And from here, we're gonna refine this selection. It does a pretty good job here on the edges. We can't see it without the marching ants, but it's not perfect, so in order to make it a cleaner selection, what I'm gonna do is refine that selection edge. So we're gonna go to select, modify, we're gonna smooth it 1 pixel, and hit OK. Select, modify again, We're gonna feather 0.5, select modify again, expand. So it's selecting the sky image, the area of the sky with the blue, and when it's expanding, it's going into the foreground just a pixel or so, and it's feathering it half a pixel. This will just pick up more of the foreground a little bit, make a smoother transition. And then from there, what I would do is I'm gonna mask it down here at this masking icon, and then I'm gonna invert that, so Command I on an apple. And as you see, that was a quick result right there. It just instantly gave us what we were looking for. Now there's some slight discrepancies with the horizon line. We get a little black edging there, and I'll show you how to correct that. But overall, it's pretty clean. I'm in at 66.7%. There's a couple ways to adjust that horizon line to simplify it, make it easier. The quickest and easiest would be to make sure that you're selected on your sky image down here on the bottom layer, and then Command T to transform. And I'm gonna zoom out a little bit, and then shift click on a Mac, and we can just drag the horizon line down and stretch that image if we wanted to. That would throw it off. On this image would be fine. And if I zoom in, that black line's gone. You're not seeing any of the bottom layer with the sky image of the foreground, the black image that wasn't exposed coming through on the edges here. So in this case, in this image, that would be fine. I would hit enter, I would hit Command 0. Now sometimes this isn't the best way to approach it, because if you have a jagged horizon line with the foreground or trees or something, you can't just simply move your sky image in the background and drop it down. Or if your Milky Way is lower on horizon line, you would lose a lot of that core because you have to push that file down. Now, if you shot your sky separately, some people do, if they shot an open sky, then you have room, you can adjust that. You don't have to worry about the sky image having something on the bottom that's gonna show through. So in this case, that's the quickest, simplest way. From here, you do some creative edits and you're pretty much done. All right, so if you've done the mask, but we still have some areas of the horizon line that didn't blend through perfectly like this, where they're a little off aligned, we can go in and precisely adjust those by not doing, I showed you the quick transform tool and just transforming by dropping this sky layer to hide behind. Oh, hold on. So if we're behind here, we're on the sky layer, we Command T, we transform that and we dropped it down a little bit, a couple pixels to offset the sky from the foreground. We zoom in, that would fix that. That's a quick fix, but not in all cases, we can't do that with everything. So I'll show you how to manually adjust that to get better results. So let me go back here. I'm gonna hit enter. So let's zoom in. We have this problem area where there's a little bit of a shift, probably because of the f-stop and depth of field change. And we're gonna go in here and isolate some of these areas where we have some of that black foreground coming through. So what I do is I grab the lasso tool here, and I'm gonna select the problem area that I have and isolate this. But I wanna make sure I'm on the mask. And then I wanna go to filter, other, we're gonna go to maximum, and it's gonna adjust just that selection area. So not all of the selection or the mask, just that tiny little section that we need to fix. So we're gonna change this radius down much lower. 1 is not enough. We wanna pick up all that area there, maybe something like that. We'll hit OK, but it picked up too much of the sky underneath that didn't have the stars. So to minor adjust that, we're gonna go to Edit, Fade Maximum, and then we can tweak that into further increments other than just 5 pixels. So we kind of want to blend that right around here until it looks right. Let me see here. Let's go all the way. That looks pretty good. So it's at 20%. It adjusted that selection just enough. I'm gonna hit OK. I'm gonna hit Command D on a Mac to deselect. And as you can see, it refined that isolated area and fixed that selection. And we have a much better blend. And then what I would do is just go through and do all these the same way. I'd select these little areas. And then you can go to filter, other, maximum, Same, 8 is probably a little bit too strong, just enough to fix it and hit OK. And I probably don't need to micro adjust that by going back up to edit, fade maximum, because it looks pretty good. So I'm gonna Command D on that, and that area is fixed. And I would go through and do that to each of these. This one's a little bit bigger, so I would break it up and do it in little sections. But any discrepancies you would fix. Okay, cool. So I've showed you a couple ways to create your layer mask. And one was the quick selection tool. The other was using max min to isolate a problematic area and adjust that. If you're still having issues, a third option I use, like in this area, is the warp tool. And I'll go ahead and show you how to do that. So we want to isolate this area first. So we're going to go to File, or we're going to go to Edit, Transform, Warp, and we're going to set a bounding box around the area we want to fix. So on a Mac, you're going to hit Command. We're going to set an anchor point here, and then we're going to set another one here to create a box around this section. So these 4 anchor points, anything around the outside is locked, it won't move. And when I set another point, which I'm gonna do here, because I wanna pull this content, I wanna pull this sky underneath the foreground, I'm gonna click this anchor point and drag it, it'll do that. Nothing on the outside will do that, will move now. So I'm gonna grab this anchor point, I'm gonna bring it down, and you can see the sky's adjusting, and it's warping. So you don't wanna do too much, you don't wanna distort those stars so it looks unrealistic, but we just wanna do enough where we can just hide that problem area. Okay, that's pretty good there without affecting the stars. Then I'm gonna hit return to lock that point, and it finished it, it saved it. So there's still just a tiny bit here that I don't like that I wanna correct, so same thing. I'm gonna go to edit, transform, warp. I'm gonna set some points, command click, and command click. So it's everything inside these 4 points that can move. When I set another point, I'm gonna do this right here, and then I'm just gonna pull that, and you can see I'm just tucking that little dark border. I'm gonna hit return, it's gonna save it, and boom, we're done. So between those 3 ways, there's a lot of techniques there that you should get good results between those 3. And from there, this is when I go on to do some creative edits. And the good thing is, we have these still on 2 separate layers, the foreground and the sky, even though we're viewing it as one now. But if we needed to make any changes, this is where I'd make this as far as exposure or color goes. So for example, these look pretty good. This looks well balanced as far as tonality, color, exposure. I'm pretty happy with it. But let's say my sky was too blue or my sky was too green. This is where you can then go into those areas and make changes. Okay, so once we've balanced the photo out exposure-wise and color-wise, and we're happy with that, then I get into some creative edits. So what I like to do is do some burning and dodging. I'm gonna show you how to do that using the Pro panel. This is John Weatherby's plugin. I highly recommend it if you don't have it. I use this for all my editing. It incorporates some luminosity masking, but it also has some creative techniques like filters, some different effects, some exporting options. It's pretty awesome. So one of the main things I do on just about every Milky Way exposure blend is some burning and dodging, and I do that with some luminosity masking. So in the foreground image here, we have some highlights that I'd like to emphasize a little more and brighten up. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on my actual foreground layer here, and then using luminosity masking, I'm gonna select some of those highlights. The white is what's selected, and the blacks is more concealed. So I'm gonna go ahead and use that one, it's pretty decent. You could hit refine to adjust that further, but I like where it's at. So I'm gonna apply this as an adjustment as a dodge and burn soft light layer. Click that, it's loaded it. And then with my Wacom tablet, I'm gonna hit B on the keyboard for a brush and the bracket keys to enlarge it. And then make sure I'm on the brush, and it's using this right here, these masking, the brush tool, white and black, as what's revealing and concealing. So if you hit X, it'll rotate those you see down here in the corner. So we want it on white to paint on white on this mask to show through. And let's see, we're at 100% opacity, 100% flow. I don't want to go too heavy, so I'm gonna turn this down to say 20%. And then you start to paint, and it'll brighten up those areas. I'm gonna overdo it just so you can see it. We'll put it up to 100%. There you go. So now it's brightening those areas up. And if you wanted to emphasize some of these highlights, you go ahead and do that. Paint on the areas that you want to brighten up. And it's revealing more of the areas that are natural highlights anyways, and not exposing or brushing in too much of the shadows because the luminosity masking is protecting that. So let's see here, let's just do a quick little paint over. That's pretty good, so it made the scene much more dramatic. Now if that was too much, you can always go up here on the layer itself, go to the opacity slider and turn that down. And as you can see, overall it adjusted where I painted and brought it back just a little bit. So like say 65%. So there's a dramatic difference creatively by just dodging and burning. So if you turn that on, you can see the contrast, the depth, everything that added to the image. All right, so we did the dodge and burn soft light layer as a creative technique. Another one that I like to do is add some glow on the horizon line. It's a little flat here in that area. So I want to scroll down to our foreground layer here, or I'm sorry, our sky layer. And then we're gonna add a gradient filter here to emphasize and make some light so like it's kind of glowing from the horizon line. So to do that, I go to filter, and then I go to camera raw filter, and this is just gonna be on the sky layer here. And then we're gonna go up to the adjustment tool. We're gonna go to linear gradient, and then we're gonna shift click, and you're gonna add this graduated filter. The red's showing the mask. We can turn that off if we wanted to. And then I'm just gonna brighten the exposure a bit here. I'll overdo it. So it's making some light glow appearance there. And you can use the circular one. You can manually paint this in if you want it to be more custom. But I would go in here, and if you wanted to warm that up, you can go down here to the color temperature. I'm gonna overdo it again. Kind of warm that up a little bit, maybe add a little bit of magenta. Kind of gives a little stylistic effect there. And I'm gonna hit OK. That's gonna apply it. And as you can see, it's added some glow there. So that's before, and that's after. Now, if you want to be able to change that and adjust that and save it as a different layer, you can create a smart layer. So let me go ahead and do that. Let's do Control click. Let's convert this to a smart object. And then we're gonna go to filter, camera raw filter. Should save what I just did relatively. Let's see. Hit the graduated filter. We're gonna shift click, drag that up. I'm gonna kind of angle it a little bit. We're gonna boost the exposure, add some warmth, add some magenta, hit OK. It applied it. Now it has a layer created down here underneath our sky image as a smart filter, and you can turn that on or off. And if you wanted to make the change to it, you can just double click on it, and it would bring up those saved adjustments into the raw converter. So I'm just gonna hit OK because I like it. So again, there's an example of what it looks like here. And we've added a little more drama to the scene. So that's another creative edit you can do. All right, so that's all we have for Milky Way blending. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and thanks for watching.